we've got a number of questions. I'm actually going to start with a question from Robert Sheard, because it relates exactly to this last part. Thank you, Robert, for this question. Are these duplicates? I think you mean that Alachan's talking about alternatives, e.g. same specification, a different manufacturer, and I'm going to give that one to Peter.
Thanks. Hi, Robert. How are you, mate? All right. Yes, we talk about potential duplicates because duplicates are in the eye of the beholder, as they say. Some people might have specifications, brand specifications. They might say, right, we only take SCEF bearings, so the SNR equivalent wouldn't be applicable. But as you can guess, because you know your bearings, Robert, that as you can guess, that the idea of the demonstration there was to show that it didn't matter what the part number said. We can recognise that. We've been doing a lot of work with a lot of the bearing manufacturers and getting their data and creating the sorts of environments where we can map. This is again for another demonstration where we're creating a global product data library using again the same basic standards, and then we're able to say, right, okay, we can manage the quality of the data. We can start then to match the material masters or the equipment masters in the ERP system to the original data from the manufacturer through the specification, so that we get some authoritative data. One of the big problems with data cleansing, as many of you will know, is that you never really know what rubbish has been put into the cells. And we can automate some of that, and that'll be for another demonstration in the future. Hope that answers your question, Robert.
Before we move on, I'd like to sort of add to that as well. From my point of view, from a product management point of view, designing the system, it's really up to the owner operator of what they would like to link together as a duplicate. We're working on improving the suggestions of duplicates, but it's not something that where we say that is a duplicate, so therefore you must link them together. That ultimately is down to that particular project, and there's a particular owner operator's decision to do that. Alachan demonstrated the ability to, with those notifications, to show potential duplicates. Now, in the background, we're using manufacturer names and manufacturer part numbers, for example, to identify potential duplicates. And also we're constantly working on improving the ability to identify, using the data we have available, whether something can be a duplicate or is a potential duplicate or a suggestion as well. And the benefit to anyone who subscribes to the CaseBurst system is all of these improvements that we do in the background are automatically deployed and available for our clients to benefit from. So ultimately, it is really up to you, Robert, and the way that you do it. But we will help to suggest potential duplicates to help to automate that process.
Great, thanks, Matt. A question from Matt Bayfield. Matt, great demonstration. You say, I don't know if other people can see these questions. How do we move things forward with you? How do you engage with that? That's kind of a great question. I know you're a very influential leader in the oil and gas sector and the data sector. So the simple answer is people have mine, Peter's, Alachan, or Matt's details are all on LinkedIn. So feel free to get in touch. We are absolutely thrilled with the response to not just the webinar, but the last year or so, and the traction we're getting in the marketplace globally, which is really very exciting. So thank you for that question. Now a question from Robbie Shepherd. Robbie, thank you. And your question is, I can see a lot of thought that's gone into the underlying architecture, and I think this is a great question. But how do you manage the human factor when it comes to entering information? If there's one place it can go wrong, it's always there somewhere. So Peter, do you want to start with that one?
Can't believe you asked that, Robbie. Nice to speak to you, my friend. Yes, you saw part of the way that we manage it by creating the data types and adding in the lists of values that then controls the data. And there was some of the result of that, as you could see in the matching that Alcan was able to do later on, because we're always using the same term of metal shield or whatever the value might be. As you know, Robbie, it's the values and the units of measurement that are the real problems around here. And we try and do as much as we can to control that. But the other thing, as I mentioned a little bit with Robert's answer, is that we're working on building a product data catalog that then will automatically look at the data that's being created as they're creating, as person is creating the data, and they can link it and they can say, okay, this field, does it exist in the manufacturer's data? Let's bring the value, so that we're getting some sort of authoritative data. We're starting to measure data quality on lots of different ways, and authoritative data is one of the ways in which we match that. But I'm sure Matt will want to add something to my answer.
You actually covered all the points I think that I was going to cover, really. So yeah, I would agree. Eliminating the human factor is difficult, and it's something that, as when you have control, when you use the concept dictionary and use the data specifications in the right way, you can mitigate and improve the quality of the data and the consistency of the data that you're going to get. Whereas you've got different representations, we can have different regex patterns to control fields, to give you a measure on not only the completeness but the validity of a particular field. So it's all about consistently measuring it and getting a hold of that before it's too late and before you can't update it or before you can't pass it back to the OEM to correct. And then to touch upon what Peter said with our product data library, we're also looking in the same way as you can link your that spare part line to a material specification that's filled in. You'll be able to link the spare part line to an item of production, essentially the manufacturer's data, which will have the correct part number and the correct attributes associated with that part number. Now, obviously, they may also have that error of human factor, but it's a lot more accurate and a lot more authoritative when it comes from the manufacturer. That's all I had to add there. Probably repeating some of the things you said.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for the icons. We can see you're saying yes. It's a curious world where it's a bit weird. This, but anyway. So the questions really are starting to rock in, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. Len Planet, does the platform integrate with the main ERPs, including automatically pulling and feeding SKU data into and from those? And there's a similar question from Daniel Giddins, who I know is a standards expert. Could you elaborate on the system's interoperability with things like building information modeling? We're now seeing model elements form part of the wider asset management strategy. Having the system interrelate with things like BIM would be quite powerful. So this is really an interoperability question. Peter, I think that one's for you.
Yeah, thank you, Len. Thank you, Dan. And there's a couple of other questions that almost we'll touch on the same sort of answers. But yes, Matt will follow up on the technical details of this question. But effectively, we are designed and built to integrate. And as I talked about earlier, it's all about exchanging data without loss of meaning. That's the key thing that we do. And to do that, we have to create machine readable data. And by implication, we're very, very close from that point of view to integration. Now, obviously, there's some other things around integration that you need to do that. But pulling and feeding SKU data in from different systems a lot of that depends on what the owner operator is using. So some of them use companies that we're associated with, like Boomi, and to put out, because obviously there's firewall implications about that. But yeah, absolutely. Matt will explain more about why the system is designed to integrate automatically and putting feeds in.
Yeah. So thanks, Peter. So our software is built in as a cloud web application that sits on a web application, which you see, which is essentially a stateless application, links into our RESTful API, and then to our database. Now, that RESTful API is purposely built in that way, separate from both the database and the application, to allow integration with other different systems, different proprietary systems. So we are flexible in the ways that we will that we link to. On top of that as well, just to go into a bit more detail onto that, including the automatic pulling and feeding of SKU data into and from those. So one of the things we haven't touched upon in this particular webinar is the data governance module, but that is at that point where you're starting to then govern your material masters. So you're taking feeds from your existing ERP systems into your essentially a copy of that catalog in our system. And then you can start to link those individual spur lines or groups of spur lines that you're getting from a new project. So say you've got global material masters, for example. You can then link those into the system and link data to it, and then keep them in sync with your ERP system.
Great, thanks, Matt. Now, we're gonna try and answer all these questions properly, and so if we do go over the hour, I apologise, but I think it's really important that we do try and do them all justice. So there's a question from Anonymous, and it's a great question. Looking at data cleansing, is every application a new one, or can missing / erroneous data be corrected using previous data sets on Casper? And I think this is really a question about specifications, Peter, isn't it?
Was a number of different questions, points within that question. One of it, of course, has just been covered in the sense that we are working and putting data in, and that there's another question down there about how can we load data into the system. Perhaps we should have said in answer to the last one, it's not only pulling data into the system via an API, we can also upload via spreadsheets that are, and we can work with to configure those to answer another of the questions that's down there. But data cleansing, so going back to something that Matt said earlier, that the data dictionary is kind of is a global dictionary, and then each individual client takes a section of that. The global dictionary, the global data dictionary covers lots and lots of different domains, and so you don't necessarily, if you're in a particular domain, you don't want all the other terms and definitions for lots of other areas. So at the client level, we break that down. Now, the point about this being is that once you use the data dictionary and set the terminology that you want and the data specifications you want, you can link that to existing material masters. So in the data cleansing module that we have, you can bring those in. As we're actually going to change the name, I think, from ungoverned records to Matt will tell me off in a minute for still using the old terminology. But we called them ungoverned records. We bring them into the system and we start to match them with new records. And that's effectively some of what we do within Casper. So yes, we can take old data sets. We can work with brownfield and greenfield on the spur. So we can take old spurs, load them in a different way, and then do the process. So hopefully, sir, that answers your question.
I've got something to add to that as well. Essentially, although not demonstrated and a particular feature that we haven't yet integrated into the system, I think that it is completely possible for us to, if you've linked spur lines to other spur lines in other documents, and there's missing information that's relevant to both and not to a specific OEM that should be filling that particular data in, and there's no reason why we can't use previous data sets or data sets from the other projects that are linked to that item to fill in that data. It's definitely something that we can look at. It's not necessarily something that we've got a feature that we can demonstrate and show, but it's definitely something we can look at. going back to quickly something else that was in Matthew Bayfield's question about how do you engage with us as well, and it might not have necessarily been commenting on this, but it's something I think is useful to add. As sort of the product owner of Kspur, we are constantly, we have a backlog of development that we want to look into, but we are also guided by our clients. So if there's some valuable features of the system that's either not even on our backlog, which I'd hope it wouldn't be, or it's something that is lower down our priority list, we can work with you to sort of bring that forward as well. It's for the benefit of all users of Kspur, and as I said, we are a web application, so those features that are applicable to all different projects across different clients, once they're released, they're available for you to use, as long as you've got the right subscription to the right module.
Great, thanks, Matt. And now a question from Anish Moham. I hope I pronounced that right. Is it possible to upload the information using Excel, considering the huge list of spares for equipment or for a package item?
Peter touched upon that in one of the last questions about, yeah, we've got the ability to do that. There's a couple of considerations. So we can export the data specification, and it includes all of the drop downs and list of values onto an Excel sheet, which you can fill in as an OEM, transform your data from your existing spreadsheets into this one. One of the important considerations here is when you're loading those in, is ensuring that you're not just absorbing the data quality issues that you had in the main Excel sheet that you bring into this. So it's not necessarily something that we encourage just mass importing of data into our system, because there is a part of you should clean it at that point in time as you're importing it. But what we do is in the downloads that we have of our specifications, we have those drop downs, those that you see as listed values built into the Excel sheet to help you guide it through, so you can even copy and paste data into that, and then and make sure it conforms before you upload it. And if it doesn't conform, then it'll be loaded in as a pending value, and it will be measurable as such in the system.
But also something that could be probably added to the part that if there is a huge list of spares for equipment, in terms of the owner operator, like the OEMs, they are able to upload their information into our Kspec module, and they are able to create a digital catalog. They are able to allow link spares to the equipment, and then they wouldn't need to repeatedly rewrite this information in Kspur. They're just able to link these items and upload and maybe edit and add the relevant information for that particular spare document. But yes, they are able to create this list and then just move them around and reuse them rather than retype them every time.
Great, and thank you for that, Anish. That was a great question. And I really like the look at the next one too. I don't know the answer. I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to guess. And this is from Anonymous about 10 minutes ago. Does the platform pull price per part data and provide a size of the prize? I think you mean a sort of prediction figure ahead of data cleansing, deduplication, etc. Well, we certainly give data quality scores, but Peter, can we give them you're going to save $2 million? So,
absolutely.
Okay.
Of course. No. This was covered right at the beginning, and apologies if you missed it because we did start pretty promptly on time. Matt showed the dashboard that as the OEM adds the price into the Spur document, into each Spur line, there's a whole report that updates immediately and says, this is the cost of your recommended operating spares, this is the cost of your recommended commissioning spares, and so I think that's a really, really important point, because one of the things that I think we've talked about it before is that there's a lot of waste, frankly, and if we can measure how much following the process properly and making that process easy to follow saves the owner operator, then that's great. Only the owner operator sees that, and I'll just emphasize that point. The OEM doesn't see that that figure, But yeah, very, very important part of the reporting. All the reporting is configurable, and we can certainly do a demonstration on the reporting privately to you if you'd like to have a look at that, sir.
Just to add to that and expand on that configurability, in the same way that we look to building, well, first of all, there's a suite of different reports that you can just add to your particular project, assuming you have the appropriate fields in the Spur document to produce that report. But we can very, very quickly put together new reports and different charts and visuals for someone to add to a particular project. We've got all of the data in one place, and it's a consistent query essentially to our database to pull out a specific report that then we can allow to be filterable. So any of these different new reports, I would put under the package of the same thing as of priority development and working with our clients to develop something that's valuable to them. If there's a particular report that you would want in a particular project, then we can make that available for you to add to it and configure yourselves.
Great, thank you. And another one from Anonymous. I'd love to know who you are. If you tell me afterwards, that would be great. But we're very happy to answer the question. How is the final bill of material linked, let's say, in SAP? Okay, Peter, you're going to take that one?
Yeah.
You have to wait till the next episode. But no, seriously, the whole part of the process is to create the different types of bombs. As you see in the next presentation, we can create different types of bombs within this. So if you've got a bomb that's tied to a particular failure mode or a particular service that you have to carry out, we have the ability to create all of those. And then depending on what system you're using, SAP or the MAST, MAST sort of fields and tables, it goes back to the other points. We work with you to load the data back in. But again, it depends. A lot of it depends on your SAP configuration. But we create the master data. You think of our system as kind of a governance system that sits above the ERP systems, and then we work out how to get it into the ERP systems. They're far more constrained than our system is.
Great, Peter. Thank you very much. And the last question, unless anyone's got any final ones, is again from Robert Sheard. And this goes back to the point I made earlier. Well, I didn't quite make it, but I did hint that we've got some very clever AI and machine learning developers, and one of them smiling on the screen now. So we haven't pitched ourselves as an AI company or a machine learning company, because frankly, everyone's doing that now, and it's much better just to be really, really good at what you do. But the question is, do you have a place for AI in building data sets? So Alakhan, that's got to be for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on what are we talking about in terms of building data sets. But one of the things that we are using and are in the midst of developing and integrating into our system is using AI for suggesting duplicates. And it's one of those really useful ways of actually using AI for making predictions on, like, based on previous links that like other people have linked these items together, and things like examining and comparing the strings of like the material descriptions. We are able to utilize machine learning to make predictions that these are likely to be duplicates. I don't know if that's particularly what you're referring to in terms of building data sets, but we are definitely using AI. I think, Peter, I don't know if you're saying something, but you're on mute.
Yeah. I'll follow on from that. Just we obviously employed Alakhan exactly for that purpose, but we were also working with the University of Southampton, and we've got 6 projects, in fact, being presented to us tomorrow. We'll be working on all summer, all around machine learning and AI and the capabilities, and looking at the various problems. There are some great things it can do, and actually some serious things that it can't do. And so we're learning a lot. We're investing a lot of time. The university have been absolutely brilliant in providing resource for us. And so we'll AI. I think we're learning all the time about what's possible, and we'll make strides there, I think.
Yes, and I think, you know, I'm the non-technical guy, as you can tell, but, you know, certainly we're working on algorithms around onboarding data as well to make that piece easier as well. But, you know, I think really as an organization, we take the view that AI is a de facto given, you know, and it's a bit like traditional. It's become traditional quite quickly. It's getting better and better all the time. Large language models, people have been working with small language models, vectors, graph databases, all these sorts of things are now part of the vernacular here at COIOS. But I'd like to thank everybody very much and wrap up the conversation. As I say, there will be another webinar in about a month. We're slightly just looking at Peter's diary because he's going to be in Norway at an ISO standard. So if anyone's in Norway and Stavanger in the middle of October would like to meet our great leader, then I'm sure he'd love to meet you. And thank you for the very generous questions, the generous comments as people have been leaving about it. As I say, we're easy to get hold of. Apart from when I'm asleep, I'm normally on my phone, much to my family's disgust. So you should get an excuse. Sunday is not a great day. I'll be playing cricket. But thank you all very much for joining the call. I hope it's of interest. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you like. We think we're onto something special here, and we'd love to get to know how we can help you solve your problems. Thank you very much indeed. Let it rock.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
See you again.